I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Yeah, hi everybody. Ron here from The Truth About Addiction. Welcome to a podcast. Welcome to a beautiful, wonderful guest, Hannah Sward. I got to get that right. And Hannah's a author, a person in recovery, and a beautiful human being. And I think, I'm honoured to have you on. And I chased you up because I seen you somewhere, and everything's for a reason. I don't believe in coincidences. I'm not a coincidental sort of person. It's not like, oh, that was lucky. We make our own luck. So welcome to The Truth About Addiction, Hannah.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on it, and I definitely am aligned with what you just shared. I don't think so either. And this is part of it, being invited onto your podcast, is praying throughout this experience with the launch and publication of my book about, praying to my higher power, God, and trusting that He will put me where I need to be, right? And as proven over and over again, and here I am.
Yeah, 100%. My book officially goes on sale on the 27th of this month, which I have launched in 3 different states. I've got a book launch in what we call Victoria, which is where I went to prison as a 17-year-old boy. And I'm doing that launch. It's now a tourist attraction, the prison. And I've been invited to go there for the opening for their book launch, which is pretty crazy.
That is, incidentally, I was born in a city called Victoria.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I want to hear about your story because I'm a little bit intrigued, because I think that your story and my story are going to be very similar from the opposite sides. From the opposite sides, you're telling the female version, and I'll be the asshole that you'd probably talk about a lot of the times. But we are who we are. I'm a human being, then I'm a male, then I'm an addict and alcoholic.
Yeah.
And we did what we did. As a male, I used the tools I had. As a female, you used the tools you had. And there's no right, there's no wrong. And it's something I don't really understand. I do understand it. I've never seen anybody who's a millionaire punish somebody for starting a new business. I only see people who've got less that have something to say.
Yeah.
I've never seen somebody who's come from the bottom rubbish somebody who's on the bottom.
Yeah, that's been my experience too.
Yeah. So you started using, what chemicals were your poison? What was your poisons of choice?
I think my first was stealing. I think that was really my first ism. Started stealing when I was 6, and I remember stealing a chocolate bar at the corner store, and I was with my stepmom, and we walked out onto the outside, and it came through the bell bottom onto the pavement of my pants. And she made me, or not made me, she had me bring that chocolate bar back. Yeah, and I will say I stole all the way up until I came into the program. That's 33 years of stealing and shame and incomprehensible demoralization. And I don't have to live that way anymore. That was the first. And just like with my using and drinking, the consequences didn't matter. Being brought home in a cop car and getting in trouble, understandably, at the age of 9, the consequences didn't matter. For active addiction, my introduction was through a diet drug. And my drug of choice, which wasn't a choice, it really became not a choice, was crystal meth. And that really took off. I first tried it when I was 24. and it took off. It really got hold of me when I was 29. And however, I remember at 24, the first time doing it. I remember it so clearly, crushing those lines on the Formica table and that little baggie of crystals. And immediately it was on. Immediately I was like, that ritual itself, even before I had my first line. And my sister was with me too. And I always remember telling her, you go make the beds, I'll do this. And you make the coffee. Not that we needed coffee at that point. And she was like, okay, it never, let's say crystal meth didn't work out for her, worked out for me until it didn't work. And yeah, it was a long run. I was a daily user. It's cunning, gripping, baffling, powerful. It had me. And I will say for myself, it was never a party. And I think that's also that's a testament to the nature of this disease, that despite it never working for me, I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And I really feel that I was trying to escape that terror that I had felt ever since I was a little girl. The loneliness and the not enoughness and the self-hatred. And that was my attempt at not feeling those things. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Anybody who has heard my story knows that I spent many months, many years in the bougainvillea bushes. For anyone that doesn't know about bougainvilleas, they're very thorny. Yeah, so that was my first.
And for you, crystal meth, did you go into psychosis with it very quickly or slowly?
I never experienced psychosis. I don't know if it's because I didn't shoot up, or I'm not sure. From my version of psychosis was being in those bushes and locking myself in a closet to color code the closet. I didn't experience the hallucinations or psychosis, so I'm very fortunate. I mean, in essence, it felt like a whole decade was hallucinating.
Yeah, it's a terrible drug. There's no good drug,
No.
I've tried most of them, and I never found a good one.
No, it ravages just like, and I'll speak at meetings here of crystal meth in particular, and it's astonishing when they go around the room raising the amount of time, how little time there is in the meeting as a whole compared to alcoholism. And really, you can't compare one disease from the other. For me, I really do feel it's all into this is the same driving force.
Yeah.
However, it's something I've noticed in crystal meth meetings, just how little time there is in the room.
Yeah. It's in Australia, we crystal meth hasn't been a drug here for a long, long time. It's only got a very short lifespan here at the moment. I'd say in the 90s, I was introduced to crystal meth in the Philippines, and I'd never seen. I'm a heroin addict. That's my drug of choice, and we'd use speed, which was still crystal meth. And in those days, speed was made out of ephedrine, not pseudoephedrine. So it was pure speed, It was long before the chemicals came in. I'm an old bugger.
Mine was in the late 90s when I started, so yeah.
Yeah, I'd been in recovery for 10 years, nearly 20 years by then. And so in the early 70s, we had speed cooks, guys who would make ephedrine, out of pure ephedrine, make speed. And I was a heroin addict, and I got on the heroin, I got on the heroin at the age of 19, not a young age, and I loved it. It promised me everything that I never had: confidence, self-worth, what I call is the fuck yous.
Right.
Fuck you, fuck them, fuck it, and then it was fuck me. That's the
Right.
only way I can put it. It was called the fucks. I
Yeah.
learned to not give a fuck. In the early days, I cared. I was too sensitive. I didn't feel like I was worthy. But as soon as I shot heroin up, it was like I didn't care. I still felt like I didn't feel worthy, but I didn't care that I didn't feel worthy.
Right.
So I still had the same feelings, but now I had a mask that was stronger than the feeling of I don't fit in. I don't care that I don't fit in.
Right.
They all think I'm a liar, a thief, and a cheat. I don't care that they think I'm a liar, thief, and cheat, because now I think I'm a liar, thief, and a cheat. So now we're all in cahoots together. My disease and I became partners.
Yeah, I relate. That definitely was my experience. Partners.
But the trouble is, it's a liar, a thief, and a cheat.
Yeah.
And for me, I started using meth. I'd escaped from prison.
You
So
escaped?
I escaped from prison. So I'm already paranoid. So I'm already crazy. And I started breaking into chemists, pharmacies, and stealing their Ritalin. And I was
Oh,
shooting that up. And all my friends that I'd grown up with in active addiction said, please get back on the heroin. You are so out of control. Because I was getting verbal and visual psychosis. I was
yeah.
standing on the top of buildings yelling out, come and get me, you MFs. I know you, and thinking the police they were chasing me because I was an escapee from prison, but there was
Yeah.
nobody there, and I was screaming at police to come and get me. I was armed, and people in the house with me were terrified. And it was such a horrible drug. When I hear people have long-term meth use, I think, how the hell did you do that? But our
Yeah.
chemistries are different too, but between someone who's a meth addict and someone who's a heroin addict, they respond differently to our bodies. They really do.
They do. And I'm kind of smiling because I relate to the helicopters and the police, because there's actually a chapter in my book that's called Dope and Palled Pussies. And it's about my chapter about my experience rescuing my boyfriend at the time from rehab. And I remember, that chapter captures it, but exactly what you talked about with, he was yelling at the helicopters and that come and get me, and similar to you he didn't. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to order the
quite-
book online. I want to read it.
Yeah, I
So
want to read too.
you had a sister?
Yes. Yeah, my little sister. Yeah.
Did she use with you?
She did that first. She did for a very short period. It just didn't, like I said, take for her. A reason for getting into it to begin with was that we were both stripping together, and it came time when we just realized the other girls weren't sharing their clothes with us, and they were sharing it all with each other, and we were really offended. And then we realized it's because we were curvier than the other girls. And we asked one of the girls, Athena, well, how do you stay thin? And she said crystal meth. And we're like, perfect, we'll try that.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, we did it for a month and we didn't lose a pound. It's never been heard of that I've ever heard of in the history of meth. Must have been bunk meth. But that was fortunate because we didn't lose weight on it, we didn't continue taking. However, the seed was planted for me. Yeah. And I never forgot that first experience cutting up the lines. So when I was 29, and I considered that I had like a nervous breakdown. I can't think of what else it would have been. I turned to my solution with meth.
Yeah. For the people in Australia and people who haven't been to America, stripping in America is a very common job. There's strip clubs everywhere. I went to America for 12-step programs, literature meeting, about writing the basic text for NA in Van Nuys to the World Service.
Oh, in Van Nuys, right here in LA?
Yeah. And so that was my first trip ever to America. Well, it was my first trip to America, was to go to an NA service committee and
Meeting in Van Nuys. Wow. Well, that's quite the introduction. I definitely had a dealer out in Van Nuys.
Yeah, and it blew me away, because Van Nuys, as you know, is like this industrial giant desert.
Yes.
Suburbia, and the blocks were about 1 mile long, each block. And when you say to somebody, man, where's the shop? He goes, oh, just 3 blocks. And you're walking for 45 minutes. You think of 3 blocks. What do you mean 3 blocks?
And it's hot out there. And yeah.
At the airport right beside the hotel, so all night you got planes landing beside you. And the good part about it was they had a shooting gallery across the road, so you could go over there and shoot rifles and handguns.
Oh, well.
America, welcome to America. And now let's go to the strip club and find ourselves a wife.
I definitely remember the non-alcohol and the alcohol strip clubs. I don't know what it's like now, but it was like that when I was stripping. My sister and I decided non-alcohol was better.
Yeah, and I hung out in LA for a long time. I went and lived in LA, in the Valley, and Sunset Strip. There were strip clubs right along there, and like La Cienega Boulevard, these strip clubs there. Everywhere you went, and people just didn't understand. After work, guys went to strip clubs, had a few beers, put a couple of dollar notes in the girls' garter belt, and they went home. That was normal.
Yeah, I actually was stripping at one of the ones on La Cienega and Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, yeah. And when I tell people that in Australia, people that have never been to America, because strip clubs in Australia were very behind the times.
Right.
More seedy. They were usually run by outlaw motorcycle gangs or criminal organisations that were really entrenched in. And the girls, God love them, a lot of them were intravenous drug users, and you'd see they weren't there having fun. They weren't there doing their college degree. They weren't there making a profession. They were there because they had to eat. So it was a completely different world. But yeah, it's just wanted to explain that to people. People go, oh, strippers, they think it's this one thing. It's normal. It's a job. Like in Thailand and the Philippines, begging's a job. Sitting there with your body twisted up like that, pretending you're crippled and getting donation. It's a job. Then they get up and they brush off and they change into good clothes and go home. And people have got to understand that don't judge what you don't understand, because people judge out of ignorance.
That is very true.
Lack of education. And, I don't, I get a bit deep sometimes. I don't believe there's any judges. Even the one that sentenced me to 18 years, he was just doing his job.
Right.
He didn't put me in jail. I put me in jail. He didn't commit the crime. I committed the crime. I'm not a victim. I chose to get involved in that lifestyle. I chose to take that drug. But once I stopped taking the drug, I choose not to take the drug.
Yeah.
So today I have choices, which is the greatest gift for me that I've been given in my whole life, is the choice of, do I get drunk or stoned today? No.
In my book, I write about being kidnapped when I was 6 from a park by a man in a brown car. And he told me that if I told anyone what happened, he would kill me.
Mm.
I think recovery, I share that because it's a testament to recovery, to, we all have our different stories, but the things that we come from, that we can recover from. And it was a challenging upbringing, very challenging. Also, lots of beautiful parts. My relationship with my sister, my father's poetry, ballet, and things happened. And I think it was also a different time there. There wasn't as much awareness about that. They didn't have Amber Alerts, and I internalized that experience though from the age of 6 that I am innately bad, right? Especially because I got my experience of it getting in trouble from that. Didn't hold a container of, I internalized it. Didn't know what else to do, right? And the trauma that many of us go through. I'm not sure whether I was born an alcoholic or, personally, I think it's a number of things. And I don't really, it doesn't really even matter.
That's me.
Right. I mean, I don't really care if it's like, was I born? Did it come? Like, I am. Like, I am.
Yeah.
And, I came into the program with that gift of desperation. Again, what we were talking about earlier about the incomprehensible demoralization, the gift of desperation. I was all out of ideas, and I didn't know how to live sober, and I didn't not know how to live sober. I had never tried to get sober before. The only times I tried was when my dealer went to prison, and I thought, I guess I'm sober. And during those times, the anxiety, the depression, I'd be paralyzed with that anxiety. That once the dealer got out, I thought anything is better than that state, even though I knew I was killing myself this way.
Yeah.
I couldn't tolerate myself. I couldn't tolerate sitting. I talk about this a lot when I'm doing podcasts and interviews. I couldn't tolerate sitting in myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't tolerate me and here. And oftentimes if I'm not doing the work, it's the same, bad neighborhood up there that can quickly come back. Or that's always there. It's just whether or not I go there or not.
Yeah. It's a disease that cannot be cured, however, it can be arrested on a daily basis.
Right.
And I'm 37 and a half years clean, a testament to the 12-step program that I follow rigorously on a daily basis.
Right.
A daily basis. Whoever got up early this morning's been clean the longest. I've just got a little bit more living experience, and I understand myself a little better than someone in early recovery. And I say there's no big shots. They're all one shot away from being junkies. That's one of my favourite sayings, because people put you on pedestals. They go, oh, you mustn't feel. I say, mate, I walk into a bank and I still think, well, banks don't have money anymore because it's all digital bullshit. And I see a truck dropping off a money van dropping off money now to ATMs. And I go, oh, it's 3 o'clock. Wonder if they do that. No, I know they don't, because I know the routine of main Nicholas trucks. But I see the armoured van. I think, in the old days now, I'd be taking photos of those guys. I'd be following them home, following them to work the next day, working out their shifts, how I was going to rob that armoured van.
Right.
And I haven't, I haven't committed a crime for 20 years. I'm 37 years clean. I went back to prison at 16 years clean.
Did you really?
Yeah, I got sentenced to 18 years. It's a conspiracy to import cocaine into Australia. It's 16 years clean, and I'm not a victim. I had a friend from the old life come back to me and ask me for help, and I made a really bad decision. A decision that cost me a wife, missing out on a beautiful daughter from 6 years to 16 years grow up. Went back to prison, and this is going to sound really crazy. It was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. I got to reevaluate my life, my beliefs, my morals, my principles. And while I was there, I was the first person in history to start a rehab in prison as a prisoner.
Oh.
And it's true, like the general manager of the prison gave me a whole prison unit with 30 men in it. and it was a completely drug-free unit. We ran morning meetings. We did an NA meeting every single day. I taught yoga, and this is in a maximum security prison.
Is that the one in Victoria?
No, this is the one in Queensland. I've served time in 4 states.
Okay.
But I had 20 years. I got out of jail in 1982 when I got clean. I got clean in 81, and I met the girl, went back to jail for a very short period of time because I wasn't supposed to leave the rehab. And she had my beautiful twin daughters who are now 40 years of age. And one of them 16 years clean, runs a drug detox unit in a private rehab. And the other one's not an addict. They're sisters. That's why I laughed about you. They're twins. One's 16 years in recovery. The other one still gets on the piss, and she's as good as gold.
Yeah, we had a party last weekend, my sister and I, and she had a sangria in her hand. She took one sip.
Yeah. I just don't understand
she
that.
Forgot about it. I was like,
why would you do that?
like what a waste.
Yeah. My wife opens a bottle of wine, and she'll have that much in a glass. Then she'll put the bottle away for 2 or 3 days, and I think, why would you do that? Well, but my brain doesn't work like that.
No.
My brain's putting a bit of water in the bottle and giving it a shake and drinking the last bit out of it.
Yeah.
Not that wine was my drug of choice, but injected water. My disease is my disease, and my obsessive compulsive disorder. See, I don't even call it a disease anymore. I say I have an affliction. I'm allergic to chemicals. You put a chemical in my body, I can no longer guarantee my behavior.
Yeah, I like that word, affliction.
Yeah.
That speaks to me.
I always struggled with the disease concept. When I first got clean, they said you had a disease. My mind went straight away to diseases, like venereal diseases, and it was like a dirty word.
Yeah.
It was like a sentence. Now, I believe, for me, I do have an affliction. I have an allergy. I always joke and say, they say, have a beer. And I go, mate, I don't drink. And they especially get the loud mouths. Have a beer, you pussy. And I say, mate, listen, after I have a beer and I make love to your wife and I bash you up, what are you going to say then? And they go, I don't have a beer. Yeah, I do. I say to them, after I've made love to your wife and beat you up, what are you going to say then? Because that's what happens when I drink beer. Yeah. Now, if I have a shot of heroin and I put a balaclava on, and I hold everyone up in the party and take all their watches and jewelry and gold, what are you going to say then? You got to understand, I have an affliction.
It's a good word. I had a problem with that word too when I came in, which was 13 years ago. So, yeah.
So you're 13 years clean now? Congratulations. Yeah. That's so wonderful.
Thank you.
So if you're only working on 1 step a year, this is a big year for you.
That's right. This is the 13th step year.
I'm sorry, that's my sense of humor. I say that to everybody. Say, I can't wait to get to my 13th year because that's the year that I'm going to only work on 1 step a year. So this is a big year for me. This is the year that I make it all happen.
Yeah. I know. I love that. That's very, yeah.
I believe we are so blessed. And I also believe that there's a reason you and I are talking today, as we started talking about before. This is not coincidental. My higher power keeps his anonymity by making coincidences.
I call it, I was talking with a sponsee earlier today, and my sponsor says that I have a higher power, a God that shows off. Yeah. And I share that with my sponsee because I see it in her life. And when I start to lose faith in my life, I see those miracles in other people's, in yours, in hers, in people in the rooms. And
I believe I'm always going to be addicted, Hannah. I'm always going to be addicted to something. I have to choose good addictions. Now I'm addicted to recovery. Now I'm addicted to helping people. Soon as I finish with you, I've got a client. I talk to him for now. Then I've got a sponsee that I've had for over 20 years coming to do his second step because he's going to America. He's actually going over there. I should get him to hook up with you. He's going over to do some meetings over in LA.
He is in LA?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's coming
Absolutely. I'm
over next
here.
week. He's coming over next week. He's going to do meetings over there.
Well, I'm secretary at a meeting, so maybe he'll come there.
We'll talk after when we're offline, and I'll get a contact detail. He's a lovely human being. I've known his mum and his dad. His mum was 22 years sober in AA and relapsed, and has never been able to get back for the last 20 years.
Oh.
And she's, but she's getting on now. But she's got the pills, and she's not so much the alcohol, but she'll, 10 Valiums. Surely that can't hurt. What could that possibly do?
No.
I mean, you go over and you got the bruises on the elbows and like I fell down the stairs. I slipped. The 10 Valium didn't do it. The 10 Valium didn't make me slip. I just slipped. The cat ran out or the dog ran out.
Right. It was the cat's fault.
When I met that lady 20-something years ago, when she was 20 years clean, she was one of the most beautifully, strongest, able human beings I'd ever met. She was so sexy. That's when you see a woman who's just within herself, strong, healthy, sexy. She's like, wow, she's a really attractive woman. Her strength was her attractiveness.
Yeah.
And then she actually relapsed while I was in prison. My mum came and see me. He told me mum relapsed, and it was all that sort of stuff. And now I see her today. She still comes to my place for Christmas nearly every year. They all come to my house for Christmas. And I hate this disease.
Yeah, me too. I've lost a couple family members.
Yeah, me too.
Younger than myself in the last couple years, and
I lost a sister,
devastating.
lost a brother. My sister died from alcoholism and pharmaceutical drugs. My young brother was a meth head, and one of his stupid mates, this is while I was in prison, this happened, gave him 120 milligrams of methadone to drink to bring him down. He'd never had opiates in his life. So he drank the methadone, went to sleep and never woke up. Yeah.
Oh, Ron, I'm so sorry. Wow. That's
part of the disease.
Lot of, yeah.
Suicide, part of the disease, untreated. If we don't treat this disease, it treats us.
That's right.
And it mistreats us. It really does. It's my favorite question I say to people: would you let a liar, a thief, and a cheat live in your house? 100% always says no. I say, well, why do you let one live in your head?
Good one.
100% say no, I wouldn't let a liar, a thief, cheat live in my house. I say, well, why do you let one live into your head? Because their disease is a liar, a thief, and a cheat. If anybody else had spoke to you the way your head has spoke to you, you would never talk to that person again.
Never.
No.
Yeah. And in recovery, we have the opportunity to play a different tape, listen to change our perception, change the way, get out of my head.
As soon as my head starts lying to me, I go, piss off. Piss off. I'm not playing your stupid game, I'm not entertaining you.
I'll call my sponsor and tell her, what's going on. And she's like, girl, shut the door on that shit. And then, and it's exactly it. Shut it down.
And you know what? People think just because you get some time up that it goes away. It doesn't, About 8 months ago, my wife and I had a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
We don't argue. We had a discussion. We've been together 11 years now. My wife's a lot younger than me. She's not an alcoholic. She's not a drug addict. She's never smoked a cigarette in her life and never taken a drug in her life.
Wow.
Which is, I don't understand it either. But anyway, opposites attract.
Yes.
We had this conversation about parenting. We have a 4-year-old she's not quite 4, who's a handful, and we have a 7-year-old who's nearly 8, who's absolutely adorable, a little boy and a little girl. We had this conversation, and my old tape went on. Wait a minute, I'm the breadwinner. You take care of her. I've got shit to do. And she's like, no, you help me. Because what she was doing, she was asking for help, but not in the right words. And I, being ignorant, so I'm like, nah, fuck this. So I go and ring up my spiritual advisor, who I've had for 37 and a half years. We've been mates for 42 years. Hey, Mario, this is what's happening. I tell him, blah, 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 blah. And I'm telling him how righteous I am and how I've got this worked out. He lets me talk. Then he goes, are you serious? I'm like, what? He said, mate, you're so far out left field, it's not funny. He said, they're your children, 2 of yous. They're your responsibility, 2 of yous. Did she make them on her own? And as soon as she started talking, my brain was like, oh, my God. And I came straight in and did my 10 steps, said, honey, I'm so sorry. I was out of line and I was under stress and I said some really stupid, I wasn't abusive or anything like that. I was self-righteous, like, I'm on my white horse, leading this charge, and you have the audacity to want me to take time to look after my child? How dare you? No.
I know when it's reiterated back to me, I'm always like, oh, okay.
Yeah. As soon as I said it, even he didn't even say anything. As soon as I said it, it was sounding like, this sounds dumb.
Yeah, exactly. That's yeah.
So, so the disease is still there. It comes out in different angles. It never tells me to use. It still tells me sometimes I should run away, or my family would be better off without me. I hate it when it tries to sneak that one in. Why don't you just kill yourself? I hate it when he used to say that to me. What other disease tells us that? It's incredibly sad that people listen to that. We've had 3 suicides in my home area. I live in a really beautiful seaside. I'm 10 k's in. I'm on acreage.
Yeah.
We're away from the people because I still don't like people. I'm still antisocial. And I can go to a convention with 500 people and get up and be the guest speaker. But don't take me to a plaza, a shopping complex. I don't cope. I don't cope walking in to buy a pair of trousers, then have to go into the change room. I still have all these phobias and these anxieties, and it's got nothing to do with recovery. It's got to do with I haven't learned to deal with these feelings still. And the way I deal with them is I just keep pushing through. I make a list in my head exactly what I want. I go there, I get them, I put them on, I go, I want to leave. And if they fit me and they feel good, I'll get one of every colour. That way I don't have to go back. And that's just a reality. I have to accept that I have an affliction.
Yeah.
I'm not put together like the average Joe Blow. And how wonderful is that?
Yeah. And that we can be around like-minded people.
I got my tribe.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You're my tribe. I love what it used to say in the old fellowship. It used to say, there's no strangers here, just friends who have never met.
That's how it feels when I walk into a room, but in another city, wherever.
I've done it all around the world. I've been to places where they don't even speak English and sat down and still felt it.
Yeah.
Then after the meeting, you get the couple that can speak English. You say to me, what are you doing? Oh, I'm here on business. I'm a tourist. You want to come for coffee? I went to Jerusalem on one of my spiritual quests because I've searched for a higher power for 42 years. And he was always inside of me.
Yeah.
I searched. I went to Jerusalem and walked the path of Christ. I went to India, done the ashrams, read the Quran, read the Bible. I actually went to the Holy City and they refused me entry into the Vatican. Yeah, that's pretty nasty. Being told you're not welcome in the Vatican.
Yeah, that is.
Well, I have a full bodysuit tattoo.
Okay.
This was a long time ago. This is in the 80s, and I had a pair of shorts on. And they just said,
"No,
you can't come in with those shorts on." It was me tattoos, it was the tattoos.
Right, they're like,
you're not welcome here. You're the Antichrist because you have tattoos. But the funny part is, I got Christ tattooed there, and I got Christ tattooed on my back. But that wasn't for religious reasons. That was for my mum. My mum passed away when I was only a kid, so all my arms are dedicated to my mum. So that's how you pray. So that's for my mum. and the jizzes on my back was so that when they whipped me, they wouldn't whip me as hard. That was the belief system in the old days, like the piracy days. If you had a religious
they wouldn't.
on your back, when they were giving you the cane, that the person giving you the cane would not go as hard because you'd be afraid of the repercussions. That's what it's there for. I put it there for that reason.
Did it work?
Yeah, I'm here.
Right.
I believed everything worked, and I believed everything was meant to happen the way it's happened. The same as, I'm talking to you as an author. I had another guy contact me the other day, an American guy called Luke McCaffrey, out of nowhere. He just started contacting me. He wrote a book. That's his book. He sent me his book, and it's called Lebanon Red, and it's a fiction. And he writes with the taunt of no nonsense energy of the early Lee Child. That's a pretty big rap, because Lee Child could write a good book. So anyway, he just contacted me on Facebook. Didn't even know that I'd written a book. Oh, he knew I'd written a book, but he didn't know my story. And he said, "I'm just contacting you." He only lives 3 kilometers away. And he's an American guy, and he goes, "Oh, I'd love to catch up with you one day." And he says, "Give me your address, and I'll send you a book." And I sent the address. And he goes, "I live 2 suburbs away."
Oh.
Because he thought it was in different states. So now we're going to hook up next week and go and have a coffee. I'm starting to meet authors.
Yeah.
Must be something that's happening with us.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the great gifts of having published this book is the people that I've met, the fellow authors, people in recovery all over, and the stories that we get to share.
I think we have an obligation to share our story, because the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. When you talked about your pain as that 6-year-old kid, the pain I felt, the empathy I felt, the anger I felt is real. Unless you've lived this life, you can't feel that.
Right.
You can go, so I've had psychologists go like this to me. "Oh, yes, okay, yeah, that must have been terrible." No understanding, no empathy, no compassion. I did my first 4th step with a priest because I knew he couldn't tell anybody.
Right.
Sounds 1981. I did my first 4th step, which was a life story those days, with a priest. And he said to me after I just spilled my whole guts for the first time in my whole life, 27 years of age, and it was a really heavy duty thing. As you'll see, I'll get you my book to you somehow. And he said to me, "Wow, you've had an interesting life." It wasn't interesting. It was horrific.
Right.
It's horrific.
Horrific. Yeah.
I shot my first man when I was 16 years of age. And my father abused me for not killing him. My father was sitting beside me and I shot a gangster. I shot him in the legs. And my father said, "You coward, you don't do that." I'm 16. A 16-year-old boy hadn't got hair on his bum. Like seriously. You've got no emotional and no mental maturity whatsoever at 16. And here I was being abused for not killing him. My message was just so blurred. My whole life was so confused about what a man was, what a husband was, what a father was, what a friend was, what a human being was.
Yeah.
I was a human taking, not a human being. Now I'm a human being. Now I really like me today. Sounds funny.
No, I feel like if I can't love myself, it's really, it's almost like I almost look at it as when I'm not loving myself, it's the self-centeredness, right? I'm not bringing in any God because God doesn't see me that way. And I feel like it can be of maximum service when I am loving myself because I come from a place that I have something to give.
Yeah. my buddy in Los Angeles, he owned a tattoo studio called Sunset Strip Tattoo, and it's right next to the House of Blues, across the road from the Comedy Company. He tattooed Charlie Sheen, Motley Crue, Roseanne, David Carradine, all the famous, and Wayne Gretzky, all these famous sportsmen. And on top of his door, he has a sign that says, "People who are wrapped up in themselves make small parcels."
Mm.
And I guarantee 99% of the people that walked through that door didn't even understand what that sign meant. Today, I've carried that sign with me because I don't want to be a small parcel.
Oh,
I've carried that sign in my heart for many, many years now. That, since 1994, when I read that sign, I've never forgotten it. I don't want to be a small parcel,
never heard that one before.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so nice. Yeah, people who are wrapped up in themselves make small parcels, and this thing that we've got at the moment, I believe through the internet, we can use the internet as a tool. Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
hate the internet, but what we're doing today, I get so many messages from people saying, I listen to your podcast. I'm in some remote area in the bush, and it's
In the
helped me
bush.
stay clean. It's
Yeah.
helped me stay clean. So if we can touch one person by what we're doing, we've achieved more than what we could ever want for. And if everybody can just help one person, our world will be a better place.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to be able to connect with you and say to you, but I want to know more about your book. I want you to show your book up, please, and tell people about your book. I want people to read your book.
It's called Strip. It's a memoir, and I'm very, very fortunate. I've gotten some very good press from. Actually, he lives in Australia. The Nobel Prize in Literature, 𝐂𝐚𝐬𝐿, and yeah, Melissa. Anyway, it's gotten some good press. I'm very, very, very blessed, and I can read the short synopsis. Might be the easiest.
Please.
So this is what the book's about. Born in the Bohemian 70s, Hannah Sward was abandoned by her mother and lived with her father on an island with no cars or stores. Kidnapped and molested by a stranger at 6, she grew up to be a stripper and a prostitute with a taste for crystal meth, which at least seemed like a surefire way to lose weight. Strip is this is the wrong copy. This is the advanced reader copy anyway. Strip is a heartfelt memoir of one woman's journey from innocence to a darker world and beyond it to growth and grace. With stops along the way for silent gurus, Iranian and Orthodox sugar daddies, foot fetish work, and drinking in the CVS bathroom before therapy sessions.
Yeah.
So, it's under the category of recovery books. And it's also been, reviewed as a story of loss and redemption, loneliness, and most recently, a reviewer had said yearning, which really spoke to me. I loved that word yearning because I think, especially when I was using and full of that self-hatred, there was this yearning for something more that I never knew was possible. And it was devastating to think that I would never live another life than what I was living.
Did you think, this is a question, did you think deep down inside that you always wanted more?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I always did. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that was the terrifying part, was this was not the life I had envisioned for myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's the self-hatred grew out of that place of feeding the addiction, feeding those behaviors that fed the self-hatred, right?
Yeah.
From the stealing, from the doing, prostitution, which for me, it all fed that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I always, I spent a lot of years in prison, and in prison you spend a lot of time alone, and you fantasize. You're in a cell 16 hours a day most of the time, sometimes more. And I always had this yearning. That's why you said the yearning. That there has to be more for me. This is not my life. This is not my calling. This is not my. I was told I was stupid. I was told that I was dumb. I was told that I was useless, hopeless, and worthless. But I didn't believe that. I didn't believe that, even though I did think I was dumb, because I never learned to read or write. And here I am writing a book. A guy that couldn't. I taught myself to read and write in institutions.
You did? Wow.
I learned how to read and write out of the back of crossword books. They used to have crossword books. You asked a question in the back, you had the answer. So I'd look at the word, and it might be OBI, obi, and I go, "What's an obi?" And I go, "Japanese sash, obi." Okay, that's what and that's why I learned what words meant. And I love words, and I wrote poetry. I've written a lot of poetry. I read a lot of poetry. I used poetry as a form of currency, because I could write poems for guys to send to their girls, and they would pay me in tobacco.
That's how my father started writing poetry. He was in the Korean War in the Navy, and he was the ship's librarian. And then the guys would go to him to write the poems to send back to their girls. And one of the things that I'm involved in is an organization called Right to Write Press, and it supports emerging incarcerated writers.
I see that. They'd be really interested.
And the poems that some of these men have written, I was just rereading one yesterday, are extraordinary. Extraordinary.
I had friends in jail. I've got some poetry, I can't find it now, that I wrote in the early 70s when I was still using drugs, and they were very drug
fueled.
Drug fueled, but drug in like a love affair. Like stop my shaking, stop my pains, help me to get up my veins, grab the belt and get the spoon while I play another tune. The reality of life drives me mad. I need a shot so very bad. In it goes, now draw it back. The rush is good, the dope is strong, now let's relax and have a bong. This was my fantasy of drug use. And I used to always write rhythmic poetry to this thing, and I used to write poems about, because you're in a prison cell. So I wrote poems about a fly, a fly that kept on buzzing around my head, and I still remember it was little fly in my cell. It was little. I can't remember. I'll try to find someone, send it to you. It's really crazy stuff. But when I look back in retrospect, it was perfect for the time. It showed you how mad I really was, and how completely oblivious to the reality of the world, because I'd grown up in institutions, and when I wasn't in the institution, I was drug fueled. Then I'd go back to the institution, and the institution saved my life, because I never had long periods of time on the street. So my drug use was limited by my times in prisons.
Yeah, thank God. I mean, in some respect.
Well, and people say to me, like they can't believe it. And I say, jail saved my life. And I say, what do you mean? I said, well, there wasn't much heroin in jail in the 70s. On the streets, there was heroin everywhere, because the Vietnam War had not long finished, and all the heroin came back to Australia through the Vietnam War. That's where we got introduced to heroin. And I was lucky enough or unlucky enough to be in that era when we didn't know about drug addiction. Right. We had no literature. NA's only been going in Australia since 1981, 81 really. We had DA, which didn't work. We had no steps and traditions. We had AA, and we weren't welcome. I got told not to share at AA meetings because I was too violent, and I swore too much, and I talked about crime and things like that, so I wasn't welcome. So we had to re-establish NA in Australia, and a lot of my friends who have been clean for about 44 years are the founding members of NA in Australia. And, we're so blessed that we had the help of support from a bloke called Jimmy K in America, who was one of the guys over there in LA. And we've had the support of a lot of good people from the States over the years. And NA in Australia is massive. It's massive. I mean, there used to be 5 meetings a week in Sydney. Now there's 5,000 meetings a week. It's in the
Wow.
years. Yeah, it has grown a lot. So wonderful. But Hannah, I am so very, very pleased to say thank you very much from the Truth About Addiction. It's been a
Thank you
pleasure
for having me
you on.
on. Thank you,
Um,
Ron.
Good
Really.
luck with your next book, because I know you've got another book coming.
And good luck with yours. Yeah. And I sent you a PDF or a copy
Right.
email.
And I'll get my wife to send you the PDF of mine.
Okay.
Right, she can do that for us, and that's the easiest way to do it. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. See, I'm not very bright with the technology, and the wife's the boss. I can still lift heavy things. No, thank you very much for the Truth About Addiction.
Thank you.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.